Hi again, and this will be a treat. I want to introduce my panelists first of all. Stacey Snider is co-chair, CEO, and basically Steven Spielberg's partner in DreamWorks. They did Lincoln together. They have the upcoming Robopocalypse together. Before that, she was Universal Pictures chairman, and before that, she ran TriStar Pictures and has a long history of making graceful, thoughtful pictures, and she happens to be one of my favorite executives. Kristie Macosko is co-producer of Lincoln and the upcoming Robopocalypse, and she also has been with Steven for a long time. She was his assistant, a job that she got after working as head of publicity for Steven's Shoah Foundation Institute. Now, Rick Carter is an Oscar-winning production designer of Avatar, Forrest Gump, and many of Steven's movies, including Munich, War Horse, War of the Worlds, Amistad, and the first two Jurassic Parks. Welcome.
We've worked on this movie for a really long time, like you said, 12 years to be exact. Started around the time of the millennium when Steven had met Doris and said, "What are you working on?" And she said, "I'm working on this movie about Abraham Lincoln." And he said, "Can I buy it?" And she said, "Sure, when I write it, you can buy it." So he then, years went by. She wrote the book. Tony Kushner, he signed on it. A couple other writers wrote, and then Tony Kushner signed on to the movie. And he wrote a 500-page script. He turned it into Steven and said, "Here it is." He honed in on this 70-page piece about the 13th Amendment, and he found that fascinating, and he called Tony and he said, "What do you think about this? What do you think about the 13th Amendment?" And Tony, apparently the story goes that he pulled over to the side of the road and was like, "How is that possible? How am I going to do that?" And then they just came to realize that it was the right thing to do. It was the right story to tell, and it was really the only way to make it into a movie.
He brought the process of the movie through from 2000 to 2012. That's where it reflects us much more, I think, in many ways, and all the specific things you could say about the political situation, because actually both sides can take whatever they want from this movie. I really think that it's the fact that we're this far into a process and we feel the burden, and now you see the ticking clock. And then it's brought very clearly at the very end of the movie, if we do the right thing, are we setting up something that 150 years from now can be worthy the way he was worthy?
One of the, I think, the most impactful scenes is where Lincoln is talking to Seward, where Seward says to him, "You can't have both. You can't have peace and this amendment. You have to choose." And Lincoln, what you see is he's basically a gambler. He says, if I could prophesize, if I could actually see into the future, maybe I'd have to pick a lane. I'd have to pick one or the other. But time is the great thickener of things, he says, and I'm going to have to wait. So he ends up, during the course of the movie, spinning both plates at the same time. And you're right, because he was able to follow both agendas, but he didn't have each and every one of them analyzed publicly. He was able to keep that wager going.
What was most important in establishing the visual look of the, of the film?
Normally in a situation like this, as a production designer and seeing all the visuals, I would sort of feel compelled to say, here's all the things that we did. Here was all the historical research, which we, of course, did in order to create that office and upstairs of the White House. This was a very different process for designing a movie, and I'd like just to address it in the sense that this was a movie that was something that was designed from the inside out. And what I mean by that is that we had an actor in Daniel Day-Lewis who took it on in such a deep way that, for me, normally when I'm coming into a movie, there's a sense of being invited to suspend my disbelief as the first person through to become a believer.
I wonder, what was that dynamic like when you have these three top-of-the-food chain guys, Steven Spielberg, Tony Kushner, and Daniel Day-Lewis? I gather, do they sit? Is it a team of rivals where they sit and hash out everything, or how did that work?
Kristie, you should answer that.
Well, it was a love triangle, really. They're all at the top of their game, like you say, but the three of them really respect and actually love each other, and they really wanted to be in service to the vision of Lincoln and the movie that Stephen wanted to make, and the actor that Daniel Day-Lewis wanted to be, and in service to the writing that Tony did on the script. And so I think they worked really, really well together.
Well, now, Stacey, what was your role on the set? I mean, you're Stephen's partner. You guys do everything together. Do you walk up and say, "Hi, Mr. President"? Do you? What do you do?
Well, the truth is, to be honest, I have to call out all the craftspeople that were involved in that clip. You know, it's one of John's, I think, most restrained and beautiful scores, and that particular piano music just gets in my chest every time. And Rick's work is impeccable, and I'd love to, you know, he's got so many great stories about the wallpaper and the toys and how to recreate it. Janish's photography, the costumes, and the impeccable casting. So that's a glamorous and way to say that this team is so in lockstep with one another and with Stephen, that my role on Stephen's movies is to help with the script, to read every draft and to encourage him to make a movie that goes against the grain of modern Hollywood.
Stephen, at the end of the day, loves great acting and great actors. So we did look at what people looked like, and there's a few characters. Like if you look at David Strathairn, he is William Seward, like to a T, like the spitting image. And Bruce McGill is Stanton to a T, like carbon copy. You can't believe it. But I mean, at the end of the day, Stephen finds really great actors all the time. And Avi Kaufman was the casting director, and she was in New York, and we were in LA. And so she would send everything through Cast It, and Stephen and I would look at things day and night, basically, because we had a lot of roles to cast in a pretty short amount of time.
Why this movie might be relevant as we face this, as Obama faces these challenges in his second term.
Well, I find it, providence that the movie is finally got made now and released now. We've all had and shared with Stephen the disappointment of times when the movie, for various reasons, didn't come together. So that it came together now, at the end of this heated election season, with this actor, this filmmaker, this screenplay, and this group of collaborators, to me feels like providence. And why it's so inspiring to me as a history, political, and democracy junkie is when you can see that we were in fact even more divided, that we were polarized and there were factions within the factions, but that messy as it is, leadership and democracy can create something transcendent. It's incredibly inspiring, and it is an illustration of what's possible. So it does seem opportune that we did have all those obstacles along the way to be able to release the movie now.
To truly lead at the right time in the right way. And that's the part that I take from the movie, because it's beyond the partisanship, and it's actually there as a roadmap in the movie. And I just wanted to say that.
I would like to thank our panelists, and thanks once again.